like a whole different thing. But this machine's got this little extremely simple computer in it. It's basically the same computer, by the way, that used to be used in those Pong games. I mean, it's a real basic computer. And it takes, to be simplistic here, it takes the reading of the breath and multiplies it by 2,100 times and tells you that's what's in the blood, because that's what the statute's concerned about, blood alcohol. That's what's in the blood. Well, that's fine, except that that's just an average, 2,100 to 1. It's an average. How do they know what your client's partition ratio is? Your partition ratio is different than mine. Your partition ratio right now is different than it will be this evening. It varies. The human body is wonderfully complex. They can't treat us all like averages, but they do. Now, what does that mean? 2,100 to 1, you know, how does it change? Well, very roughly, you can say for every 200 in the ratio, it changes the reading by 0.01. So, let's take an example. Try not to get too complex here. Let's say your client is a 1,300 to 1 ratio. That's an 800 variance. Equals 0.04 differentiation. Meaning, if your client is a true 0.07, let's assume his blood alcohol is 0.07, that highly sophisticated machine is going to report it as a 0.11. What's your client guilty of? Not DWI, not 0.08. He's guilty of being not average. And you should tell the jury, that's what the prosecution is trying to prove. They're convicting a fictitious person. Now, an old friend of mine, Don Nichols, attorney in Minnesota, used to tell the jury, he'd look at him and he'd say, my client, sitting over there, is female, Chinese, and she's dead. And the state can prove it. The average person on this planet is female. The average person is Chinese. The average person is dead. Therefore, my client, my male, American, quite live client, is not. Okay. It's important to drive that point home, because once you educate yourself, you're going to understand that this is a recurrent theme throughout their case, as you understand the different, and it's not just the machine, by the way. That whole horizontal gaze nystagmus test is presumed that the client is average in many different ways. Okay. David asked me to give you some idea of how I prepare a case, or how my firm, I have an 8-attorney firm, and I've gotten to the point now where I'm semi-retired, and I let, you know, they're all a whole lot younger, smarter, tougher than I am, and I sort of direct traffic. He was particularly interested in the questionnaire, and there is a questionnaire in the materials from my book, but we don't use a questionnaire anymore. I have 2 full-time investigators, a retired CHP, California Highway Patrol officer, and a retired Santa Ana Police Department DUI task force officer. And they do our interviews. They'll conduct a 2-hour interview of the client. They'll go into terrific detail on everything that happened that day, drinking patterns, medical conditions that might affect the FSTs, might affect the blood or breath tests, and so on. And then they will present a 5-page, roughly 5-page arrest report, if you will, our version, to the attorney. And they will go into things like, you know, was the person exposed to paint fumes, or was he pumping gasoline, or, you know, these things all will affect a breath machine. Then the investigator will visit the scene of the arrest for the FSTs to see what it looks like, take pictures, videotapes. Will possibly go over the route of driving, may videotape the route. I had Amber, she's my CHP officer, about 3 months ago for trial, got a helicopter, videotaped the route of driving to show how it was impossible for our client to have done what the officer described. You should be using discovery motions. I understand things are a little different here in North Carolina on discovery, and there are some interesting aspects of it when it comes to, for example, getting an arrest report. You absolutely want that arrest report, and if you can't get it through the officer, through apparently cooperation, apparently he has discretion to give it to you or not, which is incredible to me in terms of confrontation rights, but get it through subpoena, through the DMV process. Get a court order, get a subpoena through the court, whatever it takes. But get a whole lot more than that. You want to get all of the calibration records, the maintenance records, the usage logs for the breath machine, the certification of the machine, of the lab if it's a blood, or the hospital if it's blood, of the officer to operate the machine. You want any video, possibly from the jail cell, security video, particularly if it's got audio, because you can find out if his speech really was slurred. We then meet with after we've gone through discovery and done our interviews and so on, we meet with our forensic toxicologist. He's the former head of the LA Sheriff's Crime Lab, retired. We love retired cops and techs. And I understand you're not going to have one in your firm, but you can certainly consult with one. And if you can't find one or it's too expensive, you might consider either commercial labs or, for expert witnesses generally, consider your local colleges, the faculties. I talked about some of the things like partition ratio that you need to educate yourself on. You can do it. It's not all that difficult, but it does take some effort. Non-specific analysis, very important. What do we mean by non-specific analysis? It means the Intoxilyzer 5000, which you use in this state, does not measure alcohol. It's that simple. Big shock. Let the jury know, hey, this machine they're using does not measure alcohol. It measures the methyl group in a chemical compound. Any chemical compound that contains the methyl group will be reported as alcohol. So, how many compounds, next question is, are there that have the methyl group? A few thousand. Well, let's get realistic. How many can be found in the human body on the human breath? 2, 3? Studies show about 200. Okay. If you're a diabetic, you're going to have acetone. If you're on a crash diet, you're going to have acetone, possibly acetaldehyde. Okay. If you've been pumping gasoline, you've inhaled gasoline fumes, if you've been in a room painting, if you've been using glue, hopefully for building a model airplane, any of these things, paint thinner, all these industrial solvent, not only can you breathe it in, but you can absorb it through your skin. And, interestingly, the half-life varies and can be very long, meaning you could have been painting a room yesterday and you are breathing out the methyl group compound today. And what does the machine do? It adds up all of the compounds in your body and adds them together, cumulative, and reports it as alcohol, along with any real alcohol in your system. Now, they say they have interferent detectors available. That's hogwash. They got a thing that doesn't work terribly well, which is supposed to detect acetone and acetaldehyde. It doesn't do it effectively. It's supposed to be calibrated. It can only be calibrated at the manufacturers, and I know of no law enforcement agency that sends these things back for calibration. Mouth alcohol, tremendous source for defense. Basically, it means the alcohol the machine is reading is not coming from the lungs, it's coming from the mouth. Remember the 2100 ratio? It presumes that the alcohol has been through the stomach, through the intestines, out into the blood, gone through the lungs, and been breathed out, and attenuated by a factor of 2100. If there's alcohol in the mouth, for whatever reason, that machine's going to multiply it 2100 times. So you're going to have a tiny amount of alcohol in the mouth will have a hugely disproportionate effect on the machine. So how's it get in the mouth? Breath freshener. Oh, there's a cop in the rearview mirror. Okay. Mouthwash, dentures, periodontal disease, most common is burping and belching, and this is why your officers are supposed to wait 15 to 20 minutes before giving a breath test to observe the person, and we both know they don't, but they're supposed to. It's because of burping and belching, because the gases from the stomach, which haven't gone, alcohol has not gone into the body yet, are coming out through the mouth. We've had a lot of success in the last few years with GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, acid reflux. Okay. It's a condition that is very prevalent in the American